Alan Ross sat at his small wooden desk, staring at the blank page of his journal. He had left the life of a space medic behind years ago. Now he explored quiet forests on Earth, far from the bright lights of starports. He liked the calm of early mornings, when birds sang and dew lay on green leaves. Today felt different, though. His comm link beeped with a code he had not seen before, a royal seal from the Varala Empire. With a steady hand, he tapped the seal open. A soft light filled the room. A hologram of a tall woman in crystal robes appeared above the desk. Her skin shone like pearl, and her eyes were a deep violet. Alan recognized her at once. Queen Elira. He had seen her only once before, long ago. Now she spoke with a gentle voice that carried power and kindness. "Alan Ross," she said, "you saved me when I was a child. I have remembered your bravery every day. Now I wish to repay my debt. Please come to Varala Prime and accept a gift that can help all of humanity." Alan's heart beat fast. He remembered that day clearly. He had been on a rescue mission to a world torn by civil war. A young refugee girl had been crying alone in the wreckage of her home. She wore simple rags and held a broken toy. Without thinking, he lifted her into his arms and brought her to safety. He never knew her name. He never knew she would grow to become a queen. Alan blinked as the hologram flickered. The queen smiled. "I await your reply," she said, and then the image faded. The desk was quiet again, but Alan could still feel the echo of her words. He ran a hand through his hair. Could he trust this invitation? Varala was one of the oldest and most advanced empires in the galaxy. Its people valued peace, art, and wisdom, but they also feared human unpredictability. Alan heard stories of human diplomats who had failed or betrayed their hosts. He knew how fragile trust could be between worlds. Still, the memory of the small girl's face, filled with hope, gave him courage. He closed his journal and stood up. His old uniform hung on a nearby chair. He had not worn it in years, but it fit as if waiting for this moment. Alan packed a single bag with tools, medical supplies, and a small keepsake, a locket he had found in the rubble that day, engraved with an alien symbol he did not understand. By the time the sun rose fully, he was at the edge of the forest, looking up at the sky. The HoloLink had given coordinates for the nearest Varala shuttle port. He took a deep breath, feeling a mix of fear and hope. Alan whispered to himself, "For her, for Earth." Then he walked toward his ship, ready to begin a journey that would change everything. Alan Ross stepped onto the polished floor of the Varala shuttle port with his single bag slung over his shoulder. The wide hall glowed softly under domed lights. Alien travelers in flowing robes moved around him. A sign in Varala script and basic English pointed to Gate 12. Alan followed it, his heart pounding with both fear and excitement. At Gate 12 stood the Artemis Dawn, a sleek human-built vessel now leased by the Varala Empire. Its white hull was marked with both Earth and Varala seals. The boarding ramp descended with a gentle hiss. Inside, the ship's crew, half human, half Varala, greeted him with polite nods. A tall Varala engineer offered a datapad. "Welcome aboard, Alan Ross. I am K. Soren. Please review the flight plan." Alan scanned the plan. A direct course through the Moran Nebula, then a long glide across empty space, and finally entry into the Varala system. He found a seat in the passenger cabin, where soft seats lined the walls. Through a viewport, he saw the blue-green swirl of Earth's atmosphere fade. Soon, stars filled the sky. He exhaled, trying to calm his racing thoughts. He recalled the Queen's gentle voice and the broken toy he had once held in his arms. That memory gave him strength. The Artemis Dawn left the launch platform with a quiet roar. In moments, they slipped free of gravity. Alan felt the gentle push as the engines engaged. Crew members moved skillfully through narrow corridors, checking instruments and making fine adjustments. He watched them and felt a sense of pride that humans had built this ship for an alien empire. As they approached the Morin Nebula, the view changed. Wisps of glowing gas and dust floated past the window, tinted in pale greens and blues. Despite his years away from space, Alan remembered how dangerous nebula storms could be. He rose from his seat and joined Soren at the control panel. With shared eye contact, they adjusted the shields and rerouted power to the thrusters. The ship shuddered as they passed through a dense cloud. Alarms chimed softly, but the Artemis Dawn held steady. Inside the nebula, visibility dropped. Alan guided the pilot's hand to fine-tune the sensors. "Shift power to the aft grid," he suggested. The pilot nodded and flicked a switch. Instantly, their instruments cleared. Alan felt a surge of pride. Even among advanced Varala technology, human instincts and quick thinking still counted. Once through the nebula, the stars shone brightly again. Alan returned to the cabin and opened his bag. He pulled out the small locket, the one he had found in that broken home years ago. He held it against his heart, whispering, "I will not fail you." A soft chime signaled an incoming message from Queen Elira. "You travel well. Prepare for the final jump." Her words filled him with both calm and purpose. As the Artemis Dawn cruised toward its jump point, Alan leaned back and let the gentle hum of the engines soothe him. He thought about the gift the Queen promised and the chance to help all of humanity. The journey was not over, but he felt ready for whatever lay ahead. Alan Ross felt a mix of awe and fear as the Artemis Dawn slid into Varala Prime's orbital ring. Around him, crystal stations floated like giant gems, linked by light bridges. The ship slowed and then tugged gently into a docking bay, carved from sheer crystal. Pale violet light glowed from the walls. Alan rose, grabbed his bag, and followed Soren and the crew through a narrow corridor. As they moved, he saw alien scripts etched into the crystal. He reached out and traced the smooth surface. It felt cold like ice, yet pulsed with a soft warmth. At the corridor's end, two towering crystal pillars marked a wide gate. Light flowed between them like liquid starlight. Alan stepped through and gasped. He stood in a vast hall where the floor gleamed like polished silver and the walls were clear crystal beams. The ceiling soared out of sight. Soft music drifted through the air, like wind whispering through a forest. Varala attendants in white robes bowed on either side of him. One attendant stepped forward and said, "Welcome to Varala Prime, Alan Ross." Her hair rippled like liquid moonlight, and her eyes shone with calm intelligence. Alan bowed in return, his heart pounding. Ahead, a staircase of transparent crystal led upward. Each step reflected his image like a flowing mirror. He climbed slowly, his breath catching at every view. Soren walked beside him, offering a reassuring nod. At the top, Alan reached a balcony overlooking the city. Below, towers of violet crystal rose among manicured gardens. Light passing through the towers painted the green leaves in shimmering purples and blues. Alan's chest tightened. He had never seen such beauty. A gentle chime echoed through the hall. The great doors at the far end swung open. Queen Elira appeared, bathed in soft light. She walked down a path of crystal tiles that hummed under her steps. Alan felt respect and wonder blend in his chest. He remembered the orphan girl he once saved, the broken toy in her hands, the fear in her eyes. Now she stood before him as a queen. Elira stopped and smiled warmly. "Alan Ross," she said, her voice clear yet gentle, "you have crossed the stars to stand here. I thank you for your courage." Alan felt emotion swell in his throat. He bowed deeply, finding no words to match the moment. The queen lifted her hand in invitation. "Please come forward. Join me in the Hall of Gifts." She turned and walked away, her robes trailing light across the crystal floor. Alan followed, each echoing step filling him with purpose. As he moved toward the Hall of Gifts, he glanced back at the gate he had passed. It glowed like a promise. Now he was here, in the heart of the Varala Empire, ready to face whatever came next. Queen Elira led Alan Ross through tall crystal doors into the Hall of Gifts. The room was vast and bright. Shelves of glowing data crystals lined the walls. Strange devices floated in clear cases. Alan's eyes widened as he took it all in. Elira paused at a pedestal holding a small blue crystal globe. She picked it up gently. "This is a Farala world map," she explained. "It shows every star system we know. I offer it to you as a gift for Earth." Alan nodded, feeling both honor and awe. He reached out and touched the globe's smooth surface. Tiny lights flickered under his fingers. She moved on to another display. A simple metal cube, no larger than his fist, hovered inside a glass case. "And this is a pure energy core," she said. "It can power a whole city without pollution. You must promise to use it to help people, not for war." Alan met her violet eyes and replied, "I promise I will." Elira smiled softly. She stopped by a low shelf holding several thin data scrolls. She unrolled one and handed it to Alan. "Here are our medical records on your home world," she said. "These scrolls contain cures for diseases that affect millions. I give them freely to humanity." Alan felt a lump in his throat. He accepted the scroll and held it close to his chest. Across the hall, a small group of Farala counselors watched. Their faces showed respect for their queen's decision, mixed with curiosity. One counselor dipped his head to Alan, then spoke in Farala. Elira translated, "They wish to know why you risked your life to save me as a child." Alan straightened. He told them again about the broken home, the crying girl, and the broken toy. He said he saw only a scared child and acted as any medic would. The queen placed a hand on his shoulder. "These gifts are not only for you," she said. "They are for every person on Earth. I trust that you, as my friend, will guide your people wisely." Alan bowed his head. He thought of his home, of sick children waiting for cures, of cities choking on smoke, of people longing to explore the stars. He felt hope rise inside him. Elira guided him to a final case. Inside lay a simple silver key. "This key opens the star bridge at our capital," she said. "It can carry ships instantly across vast distances. With it, your people can travel far beyond Earth's space lanes." Alan stared at the key. He understood its power. He felt responsibility heavier than any starship he had ever piloted. He lifted the key with both hands. The room seemed to hum an answer. Elira watched him with pride. "You have earned my trust," she said quietly. "Now use these gifts to unite our worlds." Alan clasped the key to his heart. He felt ready. Together, they would shape a new future, one built on courage, kindness, and hope. Alan left the Hall of Gifts with the silver key in his hand. As he walked down the crystal corridor, he heard quiet voices. They spoke too softly for him to catch every word, but he heard danger and ruin. He felt his heart beat faster. He saw two counselors standing behind a column. They stopped their talk when they saw him. Alan turned away. He walked on and saw a guard speaking to a clerk. The guard said, "This gift could change too much." The clerk looked worried and nodded. Alan felt doubt. He wished he knew their minds. He thought of the pure energy core that could power a city. He wondered if Earth was ready. He thought of scientists and leaders who might use it for wrong reasons. Doubt struck him like a cold wind. Later, he went to the palace garden to clear his thoughts. Water flowed under violet leaves. He sat on a smooth stone bench and looked at the stars. He held the silver key tight. He tried to calm his mind. He felt small and unsure. Queen Elira found him there. She walked in a white robe that shone in moonlight. She did not speak at once. She stood beside him and waited. Then she said, "I know they whisper in the halls. They fear change and power." Alan looked up and said, "I only wish to help." She touched his arm. "I believe you. We must prove it by action." Elira smiled and led him back to the palace. She said, I will defend you if you stay true." Alan bowed his head. He felt hope return. He thanked her and watched her leave. Early next morning, Alan joined a meeting with the Earth Envoy and Varala dignitaries. The envoy, a tall woman from Earth, watched him with pride. Varala counselors asked detailed questions. Alan answered each one with honesty. He explained how Earth planned to share the gifts with all nations. When the talks ended, the envoy bowed and whispered, "You will make us proud." Alan felt a burst of confidence, yet he knew his true test lay ahead. That night, Alan sat at a desk in his guest room. He wrote in his journal, "I will earn their trust. I will use these gifts with care." He closed his eyes and slept at last. At dawn, he rose and joined the palace guard in training. He learned their drills and healed a practice dummy. He practiced until he felt strong. Each task made him sure of his path. He stepped out onto a balcony and looked at the view. Varala Prime glowed below him like a gem. He promised himself he would not fail. He would prove that human kindness could be a bridge between worlds. At first light, Alan Ross stood in a grand chamber before the Varala High Council. Queen Aelira sat at the center, her violet eyes calm but firm. Aelira spoke. "Alan, to prove our trust, you must face the trial of honor. A habitat dome has failed. Inside are young Varala children and rare plants. You will go in and save them." Alan nodded. He felt fear and purpose. He had never done such a trial before, but he would not refuse the queen. Guards led him through wide halls into a transport bay. There, a small shuttle waited. Its hull glowed with soft blue lights. 2 Varala engineers joined him. Soren, who had guided him to Varala, and Liera, a biotech expert. They wore simple flight suits and carried toolkits. The shuttle lifted and sped through crystal corridors into open space. Below them shone the green-blue world of Varala Prime. They crossed the sky until they reached a distant domed city. The habitat dome was a glass sphere half buried in pink sands. But inside, green vines had turned brown, and lights flickered. Soren fired the shuttle's landing thrusters. The craft set down with a gentle jolt. Alan stepped onto cracked ground. The engineers pointed to a broken sensor panel. A low alarm hummed inside the dome. Liera said, "The dome's climate controls failed. Oxygen will drop soon." Alan followed them through the dome's airlock. Inside, the air felt thin and cold. Strange bioluminescent plants glowed faintly. He saw small beds where Varala children rested. Their skin was pale, and their breathing was slow. Alan's heart tightened. He moved quickly. He knelt by a control console. The screen flashed warning signs. His training as a medic told him how to read the gauges. He twisted a valve and rerouted power from a side circuit. Sparks flew, but the systems roared back to life. Fresh air flowed through vents. Liera smiled and tended to the nearest child, checking breathing tubes and applying gentle warmth. Meanwhile, Soren pointed to a locked hatch. "Some children are trapped in the west chamber," he said. Alan grabbed a portable torch and a plasma cutter from Liera's kit. He hurried down a curved corridor. The west chamber door was sealed. Alan pressed his thumb to a scanner. It failed. He used the cutter to burn through the metal lock. The door hissed open. Inside, 3 children sat on the floor, frightened and silent. Their eyes widened when they saw him. Alan knelt and spoke softly. "I'm here to help. Follow me." He led them back through narrow halls. Alarms blared as a power surge hit the dome's grid. Alan steadied one child who stumbled. Together, they reached the main hall where fresh air and light now filled the space. The children gasped and smiled. Outside, Varala guards and engineers waited. Queen Aelira stood among them, watching with pride. The children ran to her, and she lifted them one by one into her arms. Alan stepped forward. Aelira placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have passed the trial of honor," she said. Her voice echoed in the dome. You saved our children and our legacy." Alan bowed deeply. In that moment, he felt true trust blossom between human and Varala. Alan returned to the palace with the silver key still warm in his pocket. He felt proud after the trial of honor, but a new chill ran down his spine. In the corridor, guards hushed their voices when they saw him. He heard words like danger and plot in low whispers. That afternoon, Queen Ailira met him in her private study. Soft light from crystal lamps filled the room. She held a folded note in her hand. "This arrived for you," she said, her voice calm but serious. Alan opened the note by the lamp's glow. Its words accused him of seeking power and planning to overthrow the queen. They were false and cruel. Alan's heart sank. He knew such a note came from conspirators loyal to Ailira's late regent, those who feared a human's rise in Varala court. He folded the note and looked at the queen. "They lie," he said quietly. Ailira placed a gentle hand on his arm. "We will show the court your true heart," she promised. That evening, the High Council convened in the Grand Hall. Towering crystal columns caught the torchlight. Alan and Ailira entered together, and every pair of eyes turned toward them. When Ailira stood, silence fell. She spoke of their bond and the gifts she had offered. Then she gestured to the council's chief scribe, who read the conspirator's note aloud. Lord Fora, a stern counselor, rose. His face was pale under the torchlight. "This note speaks truth," he declared. "We must question Alan's loyalty." A murmur ran through the council seats. Alan felt the weight of every gaze. He stood tall and spoke with a clear voice. "I risked my life to save the queen and her people. My only wish is peace between our worlds." He held up the silver key. "This gift was placed in my hands by Ailira's will alone. I value her trust above all." Lord Fora narrowed his eyes. "A human cannot be trusted so easily," he sneered. "What if he betrays us?" Before Alan could reply, Lyra, the biotech expert, rose. "I saw Alan's courage in the dome," she said firmly. "He saved our children when all seemed lost." Kasorin, the engineer, stood next. "He guided our ship through the nebula storm. His skill kept us alive." One by one, more counselors rose to speak for Alan. Each voice chipped away at Fora's accusation. When silence returned, Ailira lifted her hand. "Let the record show that these counselors stand with Alan Ross," she said. "His deeds speak louder than lies." Lord Fora sank back into his seat, his face flushed. The Queen's trust and her council's support left no room for doubt. Ailira turned to Alan and smiled. "Let the shadows in the court be banished by truth," she said softly. After the meeting, Alan and Ailira wandered the palace gardens under a starlit sky. The air was cool, and violet blossoms exhaled gentle scents. Ailira placed her hand on Alan's. "You faced their doubt with honor," she said. Alan returned her smile. "With your faith, I felt strong," he replied. Together, they walked forward, their bond deeper and their path clearer, leaving the shadows of the court behind. Late one evening, a sudden alarm shattered the calm of the Crystal Palace. Red lights flashed along the corridors, and an urgent voice echoed through the halls. Security lockdown in effect. All entrances sealed. Alan Ross and Queen Ailira sprang from her private chamber, alerted by the distant clang of armored boots. Alan gripped the silver key at his waist and followed Ailira into the wide corridor. Royal guards in gleaming armor formed ranks ahead, their crystal shields raised. Their faces were tense. "Conspirators have seized control of the main gate," a captain barked. "They aim to capture the queen." Ailira paused. "Protect me, Alan," she said softly. Alan nodded. His heart pounded, but he felt no fear, only purpose. He stepped forward beside the captain. "Tell me your plan," he said. The captain pointed ahead. "They move through the east wing. We must hold them there." Alan drew a compact energy pistol from his belt, human technology that surprised even Varala engineers. He checked its charge and lifted it firmly. They advanced into the east wing, a corridor framed by tall crystal arches. The walls glowed faintly as the conspirators moved in from hidden passages. Dark figures in stolen guard uniforms stormed the hall, weapons raised. Alan took cover behind a pillar. He felt the Queen's presence behind him, steady and strong. A volley of plasma fire lit the corridor. Alan fired back, his shots precise. One conspirator fell, smoke curling from his armor. A guard beside Alan deflected a blast with his shield and shouted, "Keep moving." Alan backed up, covering the guard as they pushed forward. At the corridor's end, they reached a cluster of council chambers. The conspirators had chained the main doors shut. Alan stepped between two guards and aimed at the lock mechanism. He fired a precise shot, and the chains snapped open. The doors slid apart with a loud clang. Inside, Elira's throne room stood empty, but for the Queen's ceremonial throne. Elira slipped inside and took her place on a low crystal dais. She raised her hand, and the hall's lights brightened. Conspirators poured in, but the sudden glare stunned them. Alan and the guards charged forward. Alan dodged a swinging energy blade and kicked the attacker's weapon free. He grabbed the blade and pressed it to the man's chest until the man dropped to his knees. At the same time, a swarm of royal guards poured in behind him, surrounding the remaining rebels. One conspirator lunged at Elira from the side. Alan heard her gasp. He spun and threw the energy pistol like a spear. It struck the assailant's wrist, disarming him. Then Alan grabbed the conspirator's arm and twisted it behind his back until the man surrendered. With the palace secure, the captain announced, "All conspirators are detained." Guards clapped metal shields in salute. Alan exhaled, his muscles aching, but his spirit triumphant. He turned to Elira, who rose from the dais and walked to him. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You have saved me once more," she said, her violet eyes bright with pride. "Tonight, you proved your loyalty in battle and in heart." Alan bowed his head. In that moment, he knew the trust between human and queen was unbreakable, and that together, they could face any threat to their new alliance. Alan Ross stood before the Varala High Council at dawn. The Grand Hall still bore the marks of last night's unrest, but now banners of Earth and Varala fluttered side by side. Queen Elira and Alan faced the gathered councilors, Earth envoys, and Varala dignitaries. A long crystal table held the alliance charter, a slim scroll of glowing data crystal. Alan felt a mix of pride and humbleness as he bowed to the assembly. He had come as a simple medic, but now he would help form a bond between two worlds. Elira unrolled the scroll and passed it to Alan. He touched its surface and read the lines of Varala script and basic English. The document named shared research on the energy core, joint medical programs, and the use of the Starbridge key. Alan looked up at Elira. She gave him an encouraging nod. He began to speak, his voice steady and clear. He told the council that Earth would honor every promise, to share clean power, to supply cures, and to open paths of peace. His words rang simple but true. Next, the Earth envoy stepped forward. She wore a uniform trimmed in silver and green. In fluent Varala, she spoke of Earth's gratitude. She promised that humans would respect Varala culture and work as equals. Councilors leaned forward, listening. A few whispered among themselves, but most watched in silence. When she finished, Elira raised her hand for quiet and addressed both parties. "Let this day mark a new era," the Queen said. "Together, we will walk among the stars as friends." Alan and Elira then approached the activation console at the hall's center. The silver key hovered in Alan's hand. Elira placed her hand beside his on the console's smooth surface. The key sank in with a soft click. Lights pulsed around the room in ripples of violet and white. A low hum grew louder until the Starbridge arch on the far wall glowed. A shimmering portal appeared, its surface like liquid glass. Murmurs of wonder rose from the crowd. The portal showed the distant skies of Earth. Gasps and cheers filled the hall. Farala guards clapped their shields, and Earth envoys bowed in respect. Alan watched Alyra step through the portal's edge and wave. He followed her with a bright smile. Beyond the arch, he saw human ships drifting in Farala space and Farala vessels waiting near Earth's orbit. In that moment, Alan felt the weight of his journey. From a single act of mercy long ago, he had helped shape a grand alliance. He turned to Queen Alyra, who met his gaze with pride. Together, they stepped fully into the new dawn they had forged. The morning light flowed through the Starbridge portal as Alan Ross and Queen Alyra stepped back into the Hall of Alliances. The crystal floor was warm beneath their feet. Around them, Farala and human citizens mingled, their faces bright with hope. Ships from both worlds drifted in the skies above, symbols of a friendship born from trust. Alan looked at the crowd and felt a gentle pride. He remembered the orphan girl he had saved, now the queen by his side. He had crossed the stars not for glory but from simple kindness. Now that kindness had grown into something grand, a bond between two mighty worlds. Alyra turned to him and spoke so all could hear. Today, we begin a journey together. Let Earth and Farala share knowledge, art, and respect. Her voice echoed softly through the hall. Humans and Farala cheered, some placing hands over hearts in unity. Later, Alan joined Alyra on the balcony overlooking the capital. Crystal towers rose around them, painted in the colors of dawn. He held the small blue world map in his hand. The globe pulsed with every known system, now open to human travelers. "It's beautiful," he said simply. Alyra nodded. "Soon, your people will visit distant stars. They will learn our ways, and we will learn theirs." She paused, her gaze gentle. "And it all began with you." Alan smiled and offered her the globe. "This belongs to both our peoples." She accepted it, careful with its shine. At that moment, a group of Farala children ran onto the balcony. They had heard tales of the human hero and came to see him. They carried tiny flowers with petals of violet and silver. One child handed Alan a blossom and said in broken basic English, "Thank you for saving us." Alan knelt and accepted the gift. "Thank you for trusting me," he replied. The children laughed and placed petals on the balcony railing before skipping away. Alyra watched him, pride in her eyes. "You have changed history," she said softly. "Your simple act of mercy created this new dawn." Alan looked out once more at the horizon, where human and Farala ships sailed side by side. "It was never just me," he said. "It was kindness." As the sun climbed higher, Alyra and Alan walked back inside the palace. They passed under banners showing Earth's green-blue globe and Farala's violet star. Servants brought them tea in crystal cups, one brew from Earth and one from Farala's gardens. They raised their cups together in quiet celebration. In the days that followed, ships departed through the Starbridge, carrying humans to Farala worlds and Farala travelers to Earth. Scientists, artists, and healers shared their gifts. Alan Ross returned to his journal, writing the tale of a bond that began with a single act of bravery. And on both worlds, people spoke of the human who saved a child, now the hero of a new era. His name became a symbol of hope and unity. Beneath distant suns, generations would remember that kindness can shape galaxies. A new dawn had risen, bright as crystal, promising what humanity and friendship could achieve together.